Hi, and welcome to week 5 of Publicity Workshop. Let's take a moment first to check in. We're a third through the semester. I hope it's going really well. It started perhaps, exactly like you had hoped it would start. Your courses are interesting. And in this particular course, I'm hoping that in the last couple of weeks, you've started to expand your vision of what the opportunities in PR are and what they might be for you and your future. So in a short time, we've really covered a lot of information. So let's recap that. So we've talked about communicating in the 21st century and how hard it is. We've talked about design thinking and tools and the other necessary things that a successful publicist will need. The importance of storytelling, we'll never stop talking about that. The framework of public relations writing news releases, and working with journalists and bloggers. So in Project 1, we met 23-year-old Nellie Bly. And in Project 2, which I'll introduce now, we start to build on your knowledge of your brand from Project 1. So Project 2 is about becoming a creative publicist. This is where you're going to start to imagine news events for your brand. I show an image here of the pioneers looking for gold deposits in the California gold rush of 1850. I'll go into a little bit more detail of that. Again, this assignment, like all your assignments, are in our Blackboard shell. So a little context. Before the pioneers set out to head west, they had a vision in mind as to what they would find, a vision of what would be the ultimate goal of traveling 3,000 miles on horseback and covered wagon. They headed west hoping to get rich and to make a better lives for themselves and their families. Some sought fortunes in timber, fur, and of course, gold. They also hoped for better health due to the drier, warmer weather that they had learned about. All this, and they had never even seen the West. Imagine, no photos, no videos, no streaming movie. So let's look at assignment 2. So building on your knowledge of what you learned about your brand in assignment 1, now it's your turn to be a creative publicist. I want you to create a newsworthy challenge or wildcard event for your firm that can either be plausible, in other words, could probably happen based on what you know today, or preposterous, might happen in the crazy, unpredictable 21st century world we live in, where fantasy has become reality and anything is possible. I'll ask you some questions, and then you'll want to read the complete assignment in our shell first. If you still have questions, ask your teammates. If you're not happy with those responses, reach out to me. So let's talk a little bit about the preposterous 21st century we live in. So here's an old piece of artwork it's about 70 years old. Earth, it once had oxygen. Imagining a preposterous future based on the damage we had already begun doing to our planet. How about something a little less scary and a little more relative to you, or relevant to you? Have you gone to the movies lately? What does that mean? For your grandparents, it meant actually going to a movie house and sitting in a theater, buying tickets, popcorn, etc. For your parents, it meant going to the movies or renting a movie or buying a movie. For you, it can be all of the above and more. So I'm curious, think about how much the world has changed from being able to stream a movie to your mobile device to your grandparents or great-grandparents that maybe went to a movie, once a year and sat in a dark theater. Also, what's changing is, has technology outpaced humanity's ability to adopt it with civility? Now that's a mouthful, so what I mean by that is, as you've experienced, as you've grown up in the 21st century, there's been a lot of technological innovations, right? The most used, of course, is the mobile device that we carry around every day. But those did not come with a manual. They didn't come with road rules. What's the proper way to tweet? What's the correct way to answer a text? How do you phrase an email so someone knows your true intention when they can't hear your tone? Another way the world has changed. Have you bought a book lately? Now, I don't know about you, but I love to read, and I love shopping for books in bookstores. I love looking at the racks. I love spending an hour. I love the feel of a hardcover book. I love the smell of the pages and the print. It's exciting for me to look for the new book, buy the new book, read the new book, and then revel kind of in the story, but also to tell my friends about the new book. So it's a much longer process. Well, thanks to Amazon, who now owns more than 50% of the book market, our values have changed. Now, there's so much to do that we value more than spending an hour in a bookstore, leaving with or without potentially a book, and then reading it. We need a book. Not only do we need it fast, we need a book in 2 hours. We need a book that we know most of the world finds interesting, most of the world has purchased or considers a bestseller. Our values have changed, and Amazon, as a masterful company in delivery, is not a bookseller, but they've tapped into a world where, because our values changed on the process, that long continuum process I described for myself, we'd rather do other things. So now I log into Amazon, I find 4 books that are of interesting to me, and I have them by the next day. And then this happened. This crazy time in our world that, sort of took the world by storm, by surprise in the year 2020, and changed the world forever. So what are the wild cards are affecting our audience? And I call these events wild cards just because they were totally unpredictable, and we have no idea what effect it's going to have in the future. So I started to list some other things that are happening. And in the back of each one, or at the end of each one, I listed if it's happening now or if I just sort of made it up. So for example, what if the global internet crashes? We can no longer say things will never happen. It could. What if a free world dictator is elected? Meaning, we sit in the United States, a free country, and we look at these countries that have dictators for 40, 50, 60, 100 years, and we think, oh, that could never happen here. Celibacy trends up. That's actually happening now, which means populations are trending down. Psychographics confuse consumer bases. That's happening now, as we've talked about earlier with the diversity of our audience. Not only is psychographics confusing consumer bases, as a marketer, I might talk to you and this audience for one thing, but I might find you again over here with another audience for another thing. Completely the opposite end of the spectrum. Because we're connecting on mindsets, we're connecting in a very, very different way and in a much broader global way. Any one person can start a pandemic. Privacy has become a thing of the past. Effects of climate change are irreversible. Crippling stupidity abounds. The global IQ has gone down. That's actually happening. Women can no longer reproduce. Sensors are gathering our data again and again and again. These things are happening. So although we haven't seen its effects just yet, these are things we will be talking about and will affect your audience and society. Again, context is everything, and all of those things and more are happening to your context. Again, I go back to my favorite quote: the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that's taken place. You can understand how miscommunication happens based on just some of the things I've outlined. So let's focus in on a few of the big value shifts that have happened in this century. So let's look at financial anxiety, health concerns, loneliness, and a quest for truth. Highlighting, and again, there's more, and you could probably think of more, but let's just pick one of these, financial anxiety. This is a different kind of anxiety than your parents had and a different kind of anxiety than your grandparents had. This is not about the anxiety post the Great Depression. This is different. So when we look at the 21st century, we have to ask ourselves, what's the 21st century value of money? Well, the 20th century value of money was something we touched. It was something you could touch it, you could hear it, these coins in the slot machine. You carried it in your wallet. Most stores, almost every store took money. You earned it. Some people were paid in cash. Some people were paid it with a paycheck or a direct deposit. But there was a tangibleness to money. I've got $3 in my wallet. I have $200 in my wallet. There was here's money in exchange for something you have. I show the slot machine because that was actually my first aha into the changing values of money. Years ago, I was in Las Vegas and always enjoyed slot machines. I love the sound of that hard coin coming down on the metal tray. It would fill your bucket. They'd give you free buckets, and your bucket would be so heavy, full of coins. That meant you were having a great time. You were winning. You would walk into a casino, you'd hear the clang, 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 clang of coins coming down. That means people are winning. It's a happy time. Then something changed. Slot machines stopped dropping coins and started giving paper receipts. You would put paper receipts in your pocket. You'd take a paper receipt to the desk to exchange it for money or credit. You would no longer walk into a casino and hear the clang, clang, clang of the sounds. It was a much quieter, cerebral place. So when I look at the 21st century now, most of us pay this way. Apple Pay, WeChat, whatever your method is, you're not touching it. And in fact, the mobile phone is now the most desired personal object over the wallet, and has surpassed its position in terms of, for a century, losing your wallet or having your wallet stolen was the worst thing that could happen, and now it's losing your phone or having your phone stolen. So we don't touch money anymore. Banks are confused. Financial institutions are confused, like Capital One. They're trying to make cafes, and here's a barista, and sit at this natural wood table on a bar stool with our advisor, kicking back in jeans. It's very, very different. They're trying every way they can to connect to you, the future generation, who views money a little differently, who spends money on experiences more than products. This commercial is also in our shell for you to watch. So what do you do with financial anxiety? It means that as a publicist, we need to add value. It's not about the cost, it's about the value. Brand discussions are all about value. Marketing and public relations is about sharing value for something of value. In the case of public relations, who's slightly different than a traditional marketing, it's about your time, your mind space, ultimately your dollars, but it's about attention, which in the 21st century is more important and more valuable to us than even money. So value equals benefit minus cost, meaning I'm not going to think about how much this costs. I'm thinking about how it makes my life better, how adopting your brand will make my life better. Products and services must now deliver a healthier, more secure, safer society. People are putting more value on these concepts and are willing to spend more because of it. In fact, in a recent study, people are more concerned about their financial wealth than they actually are about their physical health by 2 times. So what does this mean to the publicist, her clients, and other communication considerations? Again, your audience is changing. You can't control your audience. It's who they are. How do you go to them where they're at versus expecting them to come to you? So if you have any questions about what we've covered so far, don't hesitate to reach out. So let's today talk about preparing fact sheets, advisories, media kits, and pitches. Our deliverables today will be reporting 4 publicity tactics for great media coverage, describe fact sheets, describe media advisories, describe different types of media kits, analyze the steps of an effective pitch, and different formats to use. So again, we look at our friend Tiffany. And like I said, this clip is in our shell to give you a little excitement about the brand. But we also look at one of the newer campaigns that happened 57 years later with Zoe Kravitz. That's in our shell as well, and I encourage you to go into our shell and watch this. Watch the Tiffany's opening, and then watch this. What changed? Why Zoe Kravitz? What's the context of the story that she experiences at Tiffany's? It's interesting. So Tiffany's is called once again, and they want to know how your publicity strategies and tactics would change from 1961 to 2021. So let's talk about tactics. 4 publicity tactics for greater media coverage. So we look at the publicity toolkit. The publicity toolkit is really made of fact sheets, media advisories, media kits, and pitches. As I said in our last week, again, one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite guys, I'm so clever that sometimes I don't understand a word that I'm saying. Just the fact sheets, man. So let's talk about fact sheets first. Fact sheets provide information. It's a little different, and that your text will outline this a little deeper. But it's really about kind of, it's exactly what it is. It's the list of facts, date, time, place, prominent people, what's going to take place. It's a quick sort of fact sheet reference that accompanies a news release. It could be, community-wide exhibits, trade shows, fashion shows. It could be connected to anything, really. Company profiles. This is in addition to the boilerplate that's on your press release. This is really about a much more elaborate description of many stories about your company. Thanks to technology, it can be many, many stories about your company, videos, interviews. This is really when you want your news channel to really best understand your company. It may be a new firm. It may be a newly acquired firm. It may be a firm that has changed its positioning or has changed its deliverable to the consumers. This can help sort of paint a much bigger picture that the person in the news channel may participate in, read it, watch it, or they may not. They may say, I really know this company, I love this company, I don't need to watch that. But it's another great vehicle, a company profile, to make sure that your recipient knows your firm or your brand well. Product-specific fact sheets. This is where, perhaps your news story is connected to specific products, like the other fact sheet was connected to an event. So this is, I put the example of Nike here. We're launching these new shoes, and here's facts about the shoes. This kind of information would not be in a news release. So that's why you look at a fact sheet. It's only needed if the news channel requires it. But it wouldn't be the kind of information that would grab the attention of a journalist. Media advisories. So, we call this media advisories or media alerts. It kind of provides your professional social network with upcoming events that they might be interested in. For example, you might say, our brand is going to launch a new subsidiary in 2022 that's all about the home, based on how people redefined the home during the pandemic. I'm making this up. They might present that to a news channel that only focuses on home and they've never connected with before, or they might present it to a news channel where they've never connected about home before, even though the news channel has a specific home subsidiary. So, it's a way of sort of saying, this is kind of what's on our plate. This is what's in our future. And I think we might be able to connect, and I might be able to deliver the kind of news that I've been delivering to you on this subject, on this new subject. There's different types of media kits. And again, this is as varied as a news release. There's a very traditional media kit that most people don't do anymore, which is the printed form. Then there's the digital media kit, which a lot of people do because, again, we want the information as fast as possible in a format that we can use, but we don't want to touch it. So usually it's like an email blast with a link, a Google site or website. It might be a USB drive, but it contains a lot of content, well organized, but digital. The steps of an effective news item pitch and different formats to use. And a pitch is tough. Remember, we talk about becoming a master storyteller. A pitch is a short story. So a pitch is the verbal equivalent to your headline and lead paragraph. So researching the publication, again, you want to know your audience. In the case of a pitch, your audience is the news channel or publication. Now we want to talk about the pitch. And again, we talk about tell me a story every class and how you want to sort of keep your periphery open. Telling a story is also about how you frame what you see, right? It's what you write in your post in a discussion forum. So how do you do that in a pitch when you want to capture your audience's attention in less than 10 minutes? The email pitch, which is probably the most popular just because a lot of firms still are email-based. How do you pitch an idea in written form when you're not there to actually say it? And understanding that the person you're writing this email to probably gets somewhere between 200 and 400 emails a day. So how are they going to have your email come up, and how are you going to have them click on your email to read what you have to say? That's based on relationships. The telephone pitch. Again, when your relationship is deeper and stronger, they'll take your call. They know you won't waste their time. There's no time when they're just sitting back like, oh, it's a great time to call me, right? They're journalists. They're in news channels. And that's all about time and being timely. So there's no good time to call. But when you build a strong relationship and they know that you won't waste their time, that you communicate well, that your story is well structured, and that usually you've got something really interesting and compelling to say, they'll take your call. The Twitter pitch, right? This is really when you have a great relationship. And this is about this short, provocative, we got to talk. This is what's happened. We got to talk. We're launching this and I want you to have the exclusive. This is short and sweet. The follow-up, super important. Again, whether it's telephone, whether it's Zoom, whether it's face-to-face, you want to have that, sort of baked into your first discussion with them. Like, how can we come together? You want them to see your body language. You want them to feel your excitement. So when we look at the agency of the future, now, the values have shifted a lot. And again, whether it's an ad agency, a marketing firm, a PR agency, it's all the same. This just happens to be focused on the ad agency, but it could be any agency of the future that really does the work that we're talking about, that does the marketing work, that does the public relations work. Accountability, agility, collaboration, digital fitness, effectiveness, expertise, innovation, and pricing. And you'll see the spirit of this, which is so different than today, is the spirit of this is about working with a brand, working with a news channel. It's not working for a brand or pitching and pushing ideas out. This is about co-creation. This is about building communities, and this is about the power in sort of sharing the conversation. So I challenge you, as I mentioned last class, this class, how will you tell your story? Continue to think about that as we go through, and week by week, project by project. Continue to think about how you can take some of these tools, apply it to yourself, and how has your narrative changed, or how is it changing throughout these first 5 weeks, and how will it change over the course of the next 10 weeks. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a great week. Remember, read your text, do your weekly quizzes, and I'll see you next week.